Hello everyone, I'm Joe Ackourey, and welcome to the Fly of the Week. For this episode, episode 7, I'll be tying a traditional March brown dry fly. So let's get started. So, the first step to tying this traditional March brown dry fly is placing the hook in the vise, making sure that the shank of the hook is parallel to your tabletop. Okay, now, the first material we're going to put on is the wing, and the wing needs to be set in the exact position on the shank of the hook. So what I like to do is I use my thread as my guide. I wrap my thread around the shank of the hook to about the midway point. I guess right around there looks good. Clip off the excess. Now I'm going to wrap back up toward the eye half of what I wrapped. So right around there is my 3/4 point on the shank of the hook, and that's where the wing is going to be set. Very good. Next, the wing for this fly calls for natural wood duck flank feather. So here's the feather I chose. Notice all these ends are lined up perfectly, so it'll make it easier for me to make the wing instead of having to pull some off of each side of the feather and lining them up. I'm just going to clip out the middle, make it easy on myself. But first I'd like to remove all this downy fuzz. So that, just strip that down. Pull down on the feather and you'll strip that. And there you have it. And you can see that alignment I'm talking about. So what I'm going to do now is take my scissors, cut out the center section, and there's the makings of my wing. Gather up all those fibers, and you can see how they're nicely aligned. Now we're going to measure the length of the wing. So the rule goes as follows. The hook dictates to us fly tyers the correct proportions on materials, just like, you know, a shirt fits your body, a certain, you know, your makeup. So this hook will dictate to us the exact wing length. And what I mean by that is the length of the wing on this fly is going to equal the shank of the hook, including the eye. There you go, right there, guys. These are the natural ends. These are the cut ends. So you want to take that wing material and measure it the full length of the shank, including the eye of the hook. Place that in that exact spot where we determined earlier with the thread. Secure that with about 8 or 10 wraps. And then clip off this excess here on an angle, and then you can cover that up. Okay, very good. Now, we want to bring this wing so that it's perpendicular to the shank of the hook. So I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to dam up some thread in front of it so that it stands pretty close, straight up, pretty close to perpendicular. Give it a little tug. There you go. I'm going to clip off this one out here. You can see it's not cooperating with the rest of the group. So we're going to just give that a little nip. There we go. Now, step number 2 to this wing is trying to separate this, and I'm going to angle this toward the camera a little bit. Separate this group of wood deck fibers, flank fibers, in equal bunches as best as you can. I mean, it's not going to be exactly perfect, but once you have them separated, you're going to bring the thread in between the wings, or we're going to figure 8 them. So now it's in the front, you're going to throw it to the back. It's in the back now, throw it to the front. That's the figure 8 method. I hope it's coming out nice so you guys could see it. And there you have it, separated the wings. Now we have to secure those figure 8s with a couple of wraps on the back and a couple of wraps in the front. Excellent. Very good. As you can see, they're nicely defined, separated, equally proportioned wings. Now we have the wings that are proportioned with the hook. And now we're going to do the same for a tail. So you need to return your thread back to where the shank ends and where it meets the bend of the hook, right about there. So now the tail material for this fly, for the March Brown traditional fly, calls for a dark ginger, medium ginger, hackle fibers. To find this feather, I mean this hackle, you need to have quite long hackle fibers. As you can see, they're quite long, and you'll find that on either side of the neck that you're pulling from, your rooster and hackle. So gently draw down these fibers. Just keep drawing down, and they'll eventually become perpendicular to the stem, as you could see. So now your job is to pull this side, because the tails, this is the natural end of these fibers, they're jetting out that way to the back end of the fly, and you don't want to grab this end, because if you grab this end, then you got to flip them around and put them back in place for your tail. That'll just mess up the fibers. So it makes more sense to draw them using the tips of my fingers. I'm going to grab the tips of these fibers and pull away the hackle and gently condense this group to form a nice tail. You might have one or two. There we go. So now the tail is pointing in the correct direction. And, you know, we proportion the wings to equal the shank of the hook, and we're going to do the same for the tail. The tail must equal the shank of the hook, including the eye. So let's put that in position. And a little bit longer. There we go. And ride that all the way up with your thread and return it back. There's your tail, guys. Maybe one fiber out of alignment there. We'll get rid of that real quick. Let's see here. There it is. Got it. Okay. Now the next step is to build the body. We want to build a tapered body, starting from the back and working our way up toward the wings. So the body calls for this creamy, yellowish creamy March Brown fur blend that I make up, and draw it out in little tiny amounts. Just stretch it from the main group, and you can see it's just like a ribbon of fur blend. When I pull my thread out, it's going to just adhere to it, probably through static electricity, but it just goes on so easily. And again, it's best to work in small amounts. So now I'm forming this dubbing loop rope here, and it goes on really nice, and I want to make it as thin as possible so that I could build my body up gradually. Gradual taper. Thin in the back where the tails are, and gradually build up. Okay, that looks pretty good. Slide that into position right up against the tails. So now my first wrap will be right up against the tails, and just gradually build it forward, wrap it forward. Oop, watch that point. So to make a tapered body, you're just going to overlap more and more with the previous wrap, and you'll get a nice taper, I promise. There you go. Looking pretty good, guys. A little bit more there. That should do it. Nice. So we're gonna stop about 1/16 of an inch before the wings, because our hackle is gonna go behind and in front of the wings equally. So now the final step is to put our legs in, or the hackle. And this fly calls for one brown hackle, or dark, medium dark ginger, and one grizzly hackle. So there's a couple things you got to know here. Number one, there's a natural curve to these feathers. And when I tie this hackle in, I want it curving down over the fly, not up and away from the fly. So, and number 2, you want to separate the fuzz from the main hackle. We want as little webbing as possible to keep this fly floating like a cork. So we're going to draw any fuzz away on our dark brown or medium brown ginger hackle. And we're going to do the same for the Grizzly. Find that spot where the webbing goes away. And you're going to mate them two together with the Grizzly on top. And line them up. And again, we want the curve going down and over the fly. So a little bit about hackle selection here. I chose, this is a size 10 hook. And there's a kind of like a little formula we go by. When we bend the hackle over and expose the fibers, we want the hackle fiber length equal to about 1.5 gaps. At the max, 2 gaps. But this will be in proportion with not only the hook, but you'll see that it rides pretty close to the height of the wing. You'll see what I'm talking about when I put them on. So again, Grizzly on top, ginger hackle on the bottom. I'm going to anchor them in on the side of the fly, of the shank of the hook. Once they're anchored in the back, I'm going to pull my wings away gently and anchor and continue wrapping ahead of the wings. Don't crowd the eye. Right before the eye, I'm going to bend them down and clip off the excess. Okay. Return your thread tightly up against the front of the wing and begin wrapping your hackle. So we're taking the Grizzly hackle first, and we're going to begin to wrap. Let me just get that one. There we go. I got a couple of wood duck flank fiber got it in the way. Okay, here we go. You're going to wrap at least 3 in the back, equally spaced, and sometimes that hackle plier wants to slip. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3. Fold your wings back, wrap one directly in front of the wing, and wrap at least 4 or 5 in the front. Now, I have a method here I like to use. I wrap my hackle and I chase it with a wrap of thread from the bobbin. That way it interlocks and it makes the fly a lot stronger. Secure your hackle and cut off the excess. Okay, great. Kind of return your thread. You're not going to hurt the hackle if you do it right. You just kind of get jiggy with the bobbin there and find a spot in there and let it lay against the near the front of the wing. Okay, now your second hackle. I'm not having too much luck with this hackle plier here today. Is going to be wrapped to fill in any of the gaps. So here we go. So I see a couple little gaps in there, at least from my perspective. Yep. Pull your wings back. Land your first hackle in front of the wings. And again, chase that hackle with your bobbin thread. Oh, let me back up a wrap there, guys. I got ahead of myself on the wrapping of the bobbin there. There we go. Excellent. Secure that hackle. Clip off the excess. Now, you want to dress the fly. I call it dressing the fly by pulling up on any hackle fibers that don't want to cooperate. So once that's done and they still not cooperating, just get down there and clip off the ones that don't join the main group. Your flies will look a heck of a lot better doing so. Make sure you clip them deep though. And comb back any hackle fibers that are jetting ahead of the eye of the hook. Okay, I'm going to tie my finishing knot here, and I'll return to cleaning up this fly in a moment. Okay. See a couple in the front there. Get rid of them. There's one there. Just cleaned it up. It's a good looking fly. There we go. Okay. Let me get that one on the head there. All right. Put a drop of head cement on there to lock that knot in. And there you have it, guys. March brown. Traditional March brown dry fly. Great fly. Typically this hatch starts in the middle of May, like May 15th or so. And it's a sporadic hatch, but the trout respond incredibly well to it. All right, there you have it, guys. Thank you for joining me, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on my next episode. Tight lines, everyone.